We've got actress and comedian Monique stirring up some trouble, and trust mites getting messy. Apparently she's let loose some information about talk show host Gayle King. And it's caused a massive uproar. Online fans are all over the place. Some are backing Monique, others are throwing shade at her for spilling the beans. Now you must be asking, what exactly did Monique say that has everyone on social media losing it, and what impact does this have on our beloved Good Morning co-host at CBS Monique Angela Hicks, or just Monique as most of us know her? Apparently had a few things to say about Gayle King's involvement in the issues black women face in Hollywood. It seems like our black actresses are often overworked and underpaid, and Hollywood just doesn't seem to hear them out. Can you imagine Taraji expected to pour their heart and soul into roles that are beyond taxing physically, emotionally and psychologically, and they barely get paid well? And what happens when they speak up? According to the great grapevine, they get blacklisted. Now word on the street is that Monique had something to say about Oprah as well. She's allegedly accused her of tossing black women to Hollywood execs, including the convicted criminal Harvey Weinstein. Monique quirks that Oprah let Weinstein exploit black women both financially and physically, and the kicker, she believes that anyone who dares to stand up against the Hollywood bigwigs gets immediately labeled and blacklisted. Now that's food for thought, isn't it? It's a real shame when a woman, particularly a black woman, speaks up against the establishment in Hollywood. It's like she's blacklisted, doesn't get offers for movies anymore, and if she does, they're offering her peanuts compared to what she used to make. And you know what's worse? There are so many other talented black women just waiting for a chance, ready to take even less money. It's a vicious cycle, just feeding into this unfair exploitation. As the comedian said, most of these women end up retiring from acting with nothing more than awards and accolades, which, let's face it, don't pay the bills. They've spent years starring in big-budget films, and all Taraji left with is relying on the generosity of friends and family. Monique once mentioned in an interview with T.S. Madison how the voices of black women in Hollywood often go unnoticed until they're gone, and then what happens? Hollywood producers cash in on their stories. It's just not right. They've pushed back against every form of inequality since Hollywood first flickered onto the scene. Think about it, he went from being pigeonholed into playing bit parts like maid servants to taking center stage in major blockbusters, and still without getting their fair share of credit. Their biggest battle, though, the stark wage gap between them and their white male peers, and as if that wasn't a big enough blow, they're even sidelined by their fellow black artists in the industry. This is the kind of fight that Monique has been fronting for over a decade. Yeah, she's the brave soul who called out a few big wig producers for sidelining her just because she wouldn't settle for less. Shouldn't mince words about Oprah either, criticizing her for staying silent as black women kept bearing the brunt of Hollywood's unfair practices. And now she's turning her attention to Gayle King, accusing her of aiding and abetting Oprah in sidelining black women who dared to ask for fair pay. Speaking of pay disputes, remember when Taraji P. Henson was on Gayle King's show? She opened up about her life and career, and the whole thing just got so emotional she was in tears, saying she was exhausted from constantly having to fight for the pay she rightfully deserved. Man, she was just beat out how she felt ripped off even after smashing that glass ceiling. She felt like she was back at square one, negotiating like a beginner. There was this interview where people saw her pain and frustration, and fans came out to support her, condemning Hollywood's lack of action but also applauding her guts to voice out what most in the industry dared not say. They said she reminded them of Monique, you know, the actress who never held back her thoughts. You remember in 2009, right, when Monique called out Tyler Perry for blacklisting and badmouthing her to their producers? That was after she declined to do a free promotional tour. She had a starring role in the movie Precious, remember, the same one that earned her an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. She was paid just $50,000, which she was cool with cause it was a low-budget indie film, but things changed when the movie premiered. Tyler Perry and Oprah Winfrey came on board as exec producers, and they wanted the actors to do a media tour and public appearances to market the film. Monique wasn't having any off-hat, especially not for free. It wasn't in her contract, and she didn't want to sacrifice her family time for some Hollywood event. She felt she'd made enough sacrifices doing the film for such a measly sum. She firmly asked the producers to pay for her publicity efforts. She started hearing these whispers that Tyler Perry was badmouthing her to all these Hollywood bigwigs, effectively getting her blackballed. She reckoned that Perry even spoke ill of her to director David E. Talbert. Now, she never heard if Oprah said anything bad about her, but she sort of expected Oprah to step up to stick up for her, you know. But Oprah stayed mum throughout the whole messy situation. But get this, that's not the only beef she has with Oprah in 2020. Monique called out Oprah on social media. She began by saying how much she admired Oprah, but then she let loose some serious criticism, and Monique said when Harvey Weinstein's accusations started popping up, Oprah was all like, let's find the silver lining, but when it was Russell Simmons on the hot seat, Oprah was all in defense of the women accusing him. She even planned to produce a documentary on Simmons's alleged wrongdoings, though she backed out at the last minute due to some professional differences. Pretty wild, huh? Oprah's actions have been quite controversial lately. Remember when she decided not to associate her name with any project shed and tone just when more women started speaking out, and Monique certainly does. She also hasn't forgotten Oprah's reaction when allegations against Michael Jackson surfaced, even though MJ was cleared of all charges back in 2005. Oprah didn't domik to defend him. Instead, she hosted a documentary called Leaving Neverland, which focused on men accusing MJ of sexual assault, and Monique expected Oprah to at least respect MJ's memory and stand up for him more so. And Monique argued that Oprah's treatment of celebrities differed based on their skin color. She implied that Oprah stood up for Harvey Weinstein since he was white, but threw Russell Simmons and Michael Jackson under the bus because they were black. According to Monique, if Russell and MJ were of a different skin color, Oprah would have had a different reaction. In her passionate message, she urged Oprah to advocate for black women and not just stand by. Monique reminded Oprah of her initial encounter when she was just 16, and how Oprah encouraged her to strive for more. She concluded her remarks by asking Oprah to focus on standing with people who are right, not just the right people. So here's the history. Monique was pretty upset and felt like Oprah didn't do enough to stick up for black women in the industry because of that she thought people like Harvey Weinstein, who just got sentenced to 16 years after his 23-year sentence in New York, found it easier to exploit these women both financially and even physically. It's terrible, right? There were black women who came to Weinstein seeking jobs, but instead they got treated inhumanely, with some even claiming that he forced himself on the man. Guess what? Some people pointed fingers at Oprah, suggesting she was too chummy with Weinstein, basically serving up these women to him. TMZ even reported that Weinstein bragged to his team that Oprah had his back. He claimed that he'd called her and she'd encouraged him to defend himself publicly, even promising her support if he did. But when TMZ checked this out with Oprah's crew, it turned out to be a big fat lie. There was a call, all right, but Oprah refused to talk to him. She was only willing to interview him if he would be brutally honest about his actions. However, this didn't stop Monique from continuing her criticism of Oprah, accusing her of having double standards and treating black individuals differently. She even mentioned an instance where she believed Oprah was demeaning to Toni Braxton during her financial struggles. She shared a video of Braxton criticizing Oprah for her behavior. So yeah, it's a lot. It's not just Mona Cuejo's pointed a finger at Oprah Winfrey for supposedly pulling some questionable moves. Gayle King seems to have been caught in the crossfire too, with claims that she's been covering for her buddy once again. Isn't that curious? It's not just Monique giving Oprah Winfrey the side eye for some dodgy dealings. Even Cindy Crawford had a bone to pick with the talk show queen a while back. Can you believe it? Back in 1986. Crawford shows up on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and Oprah actually asked her to stand up and show off her figurine front of the audience. She even said, "This is what I call a body." Can you imagine? Crawford was left feeling like she was just there to be looked at, not listened to. Crawford once shared that in that moment, when Oprah popped out with that comment, she just didn't catch on to what was really happening. But when she hit the rewind button and looked back on the whole incident, she couldn't help but feel that something was off about it. Even with all this talk circling around, Gayle King didn't hesitate to stand her ground and jump in to defend her friend Oprah. She was pretty bummed hearing what Cindy Crawford had to say, to put it mildly. Admittedly, she hadn't gotten around to watch